Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Johanna Chan. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Hong Kong's daily infections fell for the third straight day, but remains high at over 27,000. Government admits having trouble luring mainlanders to work in the city's care homes. And Ukraine accuses Russian troops of acting like terrorists over the abduction of a city mayor. Hong Kong saw another 27,000 COVID infections, although authorities fear the number may not accurately reflect the situation. To ensure prompt reporting, people who wish to declare themselves COVID positive will have 24 hours to confirm their information from Monday. Hong Kong's daily COVID infections fell for the third consecutive day, although cases remained at a high level. Of 27,647 additional patients reported as of midnight, 15,789 were detected through PCR tests, while the rest conducted rapid antigen tests at home. In another positive sign, 1 in 8 residents screened under restriction testing declarations in the past 2 days had COVID, down from the 2-week average of 13.4%. To ensure an accurate grasp of the situation, authorities are now tightening the time limit in which infected individuals can make an official declaration. From Monday, those who test positive through RAT have 24 hours to fill in required information on a government portal. Albert Au of the Center for Health Protection said this enables them to quickly follow up on high-risk patients. Meanwhile, another 198 people aged 36 to 107 passed away. Around 140 were unvaccinated, while most of the younger fatalities had chronic illnesses, cancer, or other medical conditions. The hospital authority also announced a backlog of 87 deaths between Monday and Thursday. This brought the total of deaths since the fifth wave to 3,516, a rate of 0.53%. 23 more care homes have reported infections, pushing the fifth wave tally past 1,000. Meanwhile, expert committees are studying whether discharged COVID patients could be exempted from a third jab. The chief executive admitted running into trouble over a plan to recruit temporary care home workers from the mainland. Carrie Lam also defended keeping civil servants who tested COVID positive for a second time in their posts. Isaac Lee reports.
While the city's care homes have long faced a manpower crunch, the problem was exacerbated in the current COVID wave. Outbreaks at care facilities have forced many staff to undergo lengthy quarantine, and authorities are now looking for contract workers from the mainland, while each of them will earn up to $30,000 a month. Chief Executive Carrie Lam revealed the government has encountered problems in filling the positions. Media reports had quoted recruitment agencies as saying many were turned away by the severe outbreak in Hong Kong. But Lam was determined to protect the elderly from infecting COVID, starting with a mass vaccination drive next week.
As you will remember, a few days ago, I announced a series of measures exactly to help the elderly, to save lives, to keep them healthy. So as far as the elderly who could take a jab in the elderly homes, the target is to complete going around all the homes and administer the vaccination on or before the 18th of March.
To make sure there are enough people for the massive task, the Civil Service Bureau amended its guidelines to prevent civil servants from taking prolonged sick leaves. Around 29,000 government workers who have already contracted the virus will remain on duty even if they test positive again.
I
do not want to sound like an expert, but every decision we make is based on risk assessments, Lam said. Lam and her ministers also reassured the public that there will be a stable supply of food and daily necessities. As of Thursday, more than 107,000 tons of food and essential items have arrived in the SAR through its 3 land borders. Isaac Lee, HKIBC.
The third community isolation facility constructed under the support of the mainland has started receiving COVID patients. Chief Secretary John Lee, Health Chief Sophia Chan, and Security Minister Chris Tang toured the quarantine camp on the artificial island housing the boundary crossing of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge. It will add around 400 rooms and 1,200 beds to the city's isolation system. 2 operational facilities in Qingyi and Santin are running at 80% capacity, while 3 more will be built within this month. Omicron tends to last longer on surfaces compared to other strains of the coronavirus, according to a Hong Kong University study. Researchers have found that it can stay on smooth surfaces such as glass and stainless steel for 7 days. While it's known that the coronavirus can cling onto different surfaces, just how long it can remain alive for was a question scientists have long sought to answer. Researchers at Hong Kong University's School of Public Health now have the answer to the intriguing problem. They compared the stability of 2 variants of COVID, the ancestral SARS-CoV-2 strain and the Omicron BA.1 strain. The tests were carried out on 5 surfaces: stainless steel, plastic, glass, tissue paper, and printing paper. It found that on smooth surfaces, the Omicron strain was still recoverable after 7 days. In comparison, the ancestral strain mostly vanished from steel and plastic after the 2nd day of incubation, and a little longer for glass. While the virus disappeared a lot quicker on porous surfaces, Omicron still lasted longer, 30 minutes compared to 5 to 15 for the ancestral strain. Professor Leo Poon, one of the lead researchers for the study, called on the public to pay attention to hygiene. He said people should wash their hands frequently and wipe down surfaces with diluted household bleach to minimize the risk of infection through contaminated surfaces. A 23-year-old man who viciously attacked an elderly man in an upscale Admiralty mall has been remanded in a psychiatric facility. Hugh Harrison Campbell appeared at Eastern Magistracy this morning for attempted murder. The transport worker attacked a 70-year-old man in Pacific Place on Wednesday, leaving him in critical condition. Campbell was arrested on Llama the following evening. The prosecution asked for 2 weeks to gather psychiatric reports and determine whether he is mentally fit to stand trial. He will stay in Siu Lam Psychiatric Center before his next hearing on March 25th. Overseas, the Ukrainian president has accused Russian troops of acting like ISIS terrorists following the abduction of the mayor of a city in the nation's southeast. This comes as Moscow leaves more of Ukraine in tatters as it slowly but surely edges closer to the capital. Winna Wang reports.
For Ukrainians, it was another day of waking up to see their homes destroyed and towns in rubble. Here in the town of Volnovaha on the east, residents stood around to observe what has been left from heavy fighting. This woman recalls having to hide in the basement for over a day, as fighters walked around shooting everywhere. Her mother, whom she had to leave upstairs, had already died by the time she was able to get help again. This as the Russian-Ukrainian war enters day 17. Similar scenes can be observed from across the country as Russian forces edged closer to the capital, leaving a trail of destruction behind. In his daily address, President Volodymyr Zelensky reported that the mayor of Melitopol, a city in the southeast, had been abducted by Russian forces. Ivan Fedorov was apparently taken away by 10 people from the city's crisis center with a plastic bag over his head. Zelensky accused Russia of acting like ISIS terrorists and assured people in democratic countries will learn of their misdeeds. In New York City, where the United Nations Security Council gathered yesterday, the United States and Russia squabbled over biological weapons claims. Moscow has made claims that Washington is conducting biological activities in Ukraine, which the U.S. denies.
Last month, Secretary Blinken laid out with tragic accuracy what Russia was about to do. He specifically warned that Russia would manufacture a pretext for attack and even cautioned that Russia would fabricate allegations about chemical or biological weapons to justify its own violent attacks against the Ukrainian people. I will say this once. Ukraine does not have a biological weapons program. There are no Ukrainian biological weapons laboratories supported by the United States, not near Russia's border or anywhere.
Russia is finding itself at war with Western social media platforms as well. Authorities have called for Facebook's parent company, Meta, to be labeled as an extremist organization. It comes after the tech giant temporarily changed some of its policies in Ukraine, which would allow users to call for violence against Russian soldiers. Facebook has already been banned in Russia since March 4th, while Meta's other platform, Instagram, will go offline there on Monday. Wina Wong, HKIBC.
U.S. President Joe Biden has blamed his Russian counterpart for his country's inflation and recent skyrocketing gas prices.
And Putin began amassing troops along the border, and guess what? The world took notice. And those of you who work in the business know that the market anticipated. Prices went up more. And then Putin invaded. Make no mistake, inflation is largely the fault of Putin.
Gas prices in the U.S. and around the world have shot up even faster since Russia began amassing troops at its border with Ukraine. Western energy companies had already been cutting ties with Russia and limiting imports before the Biden administration eventually banned Russian oil from entering the country. On to the weather now. It will be sunny tomorrow with some mist at night. Temperatures will range between 20 and 26 degrees. Humid with some coastal fog after the weekend. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Saturday night. Join us for more news at 10. I'm Johanna Chan. Thanks for watching. Good night.